Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Making Motherhood Magical podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Maybright, and I'm super excited to get started with today's episode. Today's episode, we're going to cover a few things. One thing is when this airs, it will be the day after Imbolc. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Imbolc and what that is and why it is a magical holiday. And we are going to focus today on self care, and one of the most important parts of self care is having boundaries. So today we're going to talk about boundaries, which leads me to our magic moment of the week. So, magic moment this week involves myself, my husband, and technically, really, my whole family. So, I'm a mom of five. We only have two left in the house. We have two adult children. We have one teenage child that is living with their biological mom in Texas. And then we have two smaller children that live with us. And honestly, for like the last 10 years, I have been so scattered, so sleep deprived, so busy. And I could not do it all without the help of my husband. But just the background is that I've literally been overwhelmed for a long time. And last week, I I was done. I was done being a mom. I was done being a wife. I was done. I was just done. And I secured a place to stay that was a friend's house that they were not there. And so I could have one evening that nobody wanted me to fill their water cup or read them a book or have intimate time with them. Like I literally wanted nothing but myself for 24 hours. Now, I can tell you, my husband's a Cancer sun, Scorpio moon. He's very emotional. He's very loving, but he is definitely led by his water emotions. And for me to come to him and say, look, I need to go stay somewhere else that is not here with y'all. I need a break. I think it broke his heart, literally. But I stood firm and I explained to him, I just need this for myself today, now. And I packed some bags. I took some work stuff with me. I took some podcast stuff with me. I took some clothes and some snacks. And I headed to a place that I knew I could have complete and utter solitude. It was fantastic. Only thing would have been better is if it was a hotel room and had room service. But other than that, it was the best thing that I could have done for myself. And I needed it. I needed it really bad. And I think it made my husband really concerned because he did not comprehend why I needed to get away, but I did. And I set that boundary. I set it and I meant it, and it wasn't to hurt anyone's feelings. It was to save my own sanity, which is what boundaries are about. Boundaries are about doing what you need to do that's best for your mental health, for your physical health, for your emotional health. So I set this hard boundary. I went and had my time alone, came home, everything was great. Now, the second part of the story, also about my husband, the magic moment happened with my husband. But you have to know a little bit more about him to understand why this moment was absolutely magical. So my husband is 6'4". He's a big dude. He sweats a lot. He does not like being hot. Literally, when we moved from Texas, we had come to visit Colorado and we went back home and it was hot and it was humid and it was the end of May. And we were like, we cannot do this anymore. We are adults and it is too hot to freaking live in Texas. Let's go live somewhere that's a little bit more hospitable. And we have not regretted a day in our life. But the point is my husband is very hot natured on all levels. And he does not want to go vacation places that are hot. Like a beach vacation to him does not sound like fun. A mountain vacation to him does sound like fun. But like we'll watch Naked and Afraid. And I remember there was one episode that they were in like the jungles of Mexico. And I decided that if I had to go and be on Naked and Afraid with my own husband in the jungles of Mexico, that I would probably kill him and eat him because I could not survive in a jungle with high heat and humidity with my own husband. I will be the first one to admit it. So he has no interest, like I said, in traveling anywhere that's hot. And one of my lifelong bucket list goals is to tour India. Now, yes, there are some parts of India that are not hot, but in general, most of India is pretty hot all the time. And he has no interest whatsoever in going to India. So, preface with that. I'm on the internet the other day looking up places to go do a retreat in India, like a week retreat or, a couple of days at least. And I found this place that looks amazing. And I sent the link to my husband and I was like, I really, really want to do this. And I think that he probably saw that as not only does Jamie need another break, but Jamie needs a break on the other side of the world because he knows that I know he would never want to go to India. And so I was truly shocked by the magical response that he gave me when he explained to me that he would love to join me on a spiritual retreat in India. Now, if you know him, you know that one, a spiritual retreat is not what he looks for in a vacation. And two, India is not the place he wants to go. And he literally texted me back how that sounded really cool and he could not wait to share that experience with me. And that was my magic moment because it clicked in my head that because I did set a boundary with, hey, I need some time to myself, it made him bend his own boundaries in ways that bring us closer together. And to me, that is very magical. The fact that he would ever even consider going to India with me is magical. So we have a plan to go to Alaska first, but after we go to Alaska, our butts are going to go to India for a 5-day retreat at this wonderful spiritual center that's on the beach in India. So I'm excited and I'm proud of him and I'm proud of me. I'm proud that I set a boundary and I told him I need a break. And because I did that, it benefited our relationship. It didn't just benefit myself, although my break did benefit me the most, I think. When I came back home, I was ready to be mom again. I was ready to be wife again. I was ready to be that part of me again. But because I set that hard limit, I got more out of my husband than I had ever expected. So, wish us luck on our trip to India and hope that he is not as hot as I think he's going to be. We're going to try to choose spring or fall so it's not like the hottest time of the year. But that was my magic moment. So I hope that y'all can take some boundaries and make some magic moments in your life also. So before we get into talking about self care and boundaries, I want to talk about a very special day that happened to be yesterday, February 2nd. And it is a ancient Celtic, Gaelic, Scottish, Irish festival celebration. It is called Imbolc. It's also called Candlemas. It's also called St. Bridget's Day. And we'll get to why it's called all those different things. But Imbolc was believed to be when Cailleach, I think I said that right, Cailleach, the divine hag of Gaelic tradition, gathers her firewood for the rest of the winter. Legend has it that if she wishes to make the winter last a good while longer, she will make sure that the weather on Imbolc is bright and sunny so that she can gather plenty of firewood. Therefore, people would be relieved if Imbolc is a day of foul weather, as it means that Cailleach is asleep and winter is almost over because she didn't go and gather any firewood. So she's not going to need to maintain that fire longer. So I don't know if this sounds a little bit like a holiday that we have here in the States. It has to do with a little fuzzy critter that lives in a hole in the ground. But that is what has led. I'm not going to say that is why. That's what has led to Groundhog's Day. And that is why if The groundhog sees its shadow. It's sunny outside. And if it's sunny outside, she got to get more firewood, which means winter's going to last longer. So if it's sunny outside and the groundhog sees its shadow, 6 more weeks of winter. If the groundhog does not see its shadow and she could not go and gather more firewood, then spring is going to be sooner. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think that that's really cool that has morphed into something that I bet a lot of Americans don't even know came from a Gaelic and Scottish folk story. So besides it being about Cailleach, Imbolc is a pagan and Wiccan festival that originated in the British Isles before Christianity. It is celebrated in early February. Sometimes it's the last day of January and it can go up until February 3rd. This year it was yesterday, February 2nd. But the word Imbolc may mean in the belly of the mother, and it may have been associated with the breeding cycle of sheep. It's often associated. Milk is associated with Imbolc, and so it is also associated with the goddess Bridget, and it was a festival, it was a feast of purification for farmers. People would leave items of clothing or strips of cloth outside for Bridget to bless. A lot of people will leave like a scarf outside. Last year, I left my cloak outside. I don't know what I'm going to leave out this year because I'm obviously recording this before it happened, but I will keep y'all posted later on to tell you what I left out for Bridget to bless. People would inspect the ashes from the fire in the morning to see if Bridget had visited. They would visit holy wells and pray for health. Bridget is associated with a specific well in Ireland, so a lot of people will pay homage to that, make a pilgrimage to Bridget's well. They would also weave St. Bridget crosses out of reeds, and I will attach a link in the show notes that shows you what a St. Bridget cross looks like. And they're really easy to make and they're a lot of fun. I will go down to our river and cut what at this point in the year is all dead reeds. And I will weave one out of the dead reeds. And it ends up looking really pretty every year. They also would make corn dollies to represent Bridget. And if you look in the supermarket and in any produce section, you're usually going to be able to find corn husks. They are used for making tamales, but they are already clean, they are already ready to go, and they are perfect for making corn dollies. And so that's one thing that I love to do with my kids. We try to make them every year, and then we'll put them on like a little altar or whatever. Christianity took Bridget, the goddess that has been around for as long as there's been Irish and Celtic traditions. And they turned her into a saint. And part of that was because when Christians came and spread Christianity throughout the British Isles, they had to leave some of the stuff that people celebrated in to kind of entice them into the church. And so Imbolc became St. Bridget's Day, and St. Bridget became a saint because the church decided that she was worthy of saintdom. So that is after the Christianization of Europe, Imbolc became the Feast of St. Bridget. And Imbolc may have been replaced in the Christian calendar by Candlemas. So that is yesterday. I hope everyone had a great day. I hope that your weather was gloomy and gross so that we can be done with this winter. I will say today my kids are home. I'm trying to record this while they are playing outside in the snow. This is our 4th snow day, and it was like -11 this morning when I woke up. So long story short, if they come in, that may happen and we'll deal with that. But yeah, today is a beautiful snow day. And so I am going to pull a card from the Seasons of the Witch Imbolc deck. And I'm going to, the cards are gorgeous too, by the way. They're very shiny and blue. They have candles on them. And so I'm going to pull one for us to focus on for the next week to see what Saint Bridget and Khaled have for us. So let's see what card we draw. Amethyst. That's the first card in the deck. And what's crazy is this is the card that I drew a couple of days ago when I first pulled the deck out because it was snowy and I was just, I don't know, I was feeling more in bulky than I was usually. So I put the Yule deck up and I got this deck out. And this is the card that I drew. And I stuck it inside, shuffled the cards, and then still pulled this card again. So I'm going to go with the fact that this is a really good card to maybe focus on for the whole season for the next 6 weeks. So let me see if I can hold that up so you can see the picture, and I will get out the book and read what it has to say. All right. Go where your spirit dwells, where your sight is clear and your breath is liberated. Keywords are intuition, spiritual connection, and stress relief. Stress relief is something we're going to talk about today with boundaries. So I think that that's a really good one. And if you have an amethyst, I'm going to carry an amethyst around the next couple of weeks. It says you may be experiencing a very emotional or stressful time when you receive the amethyst card. Perhaps the situation has gotten out of hand and you aren't sure how you're going to resolve the matter. Amethyst is considered to be both a stone of spiritual connection and helpful in seeking sobriety, which suggests the answer to your question is likely a balance between spiritual and practical means. Taking time to clear your mind in a meditative practice could help in seeking a solution to your problem or could provide inspiration for your next steps. However, it is still up to you to put the guidance you have received into practice. Connecting with a cosmic intelligence has no useful power if you are unwilling or unmotivated to act upon this gift of wisdom. Trust that your intuition is correct and will guide you to the right outcome. Additionally, this card encourages you to find productive ways to manage stress and warns of the destructive habit of playing the victim. Perhaps you even feel powerless against your impulses, but giving in to temptation is likely to lead to further heartache. While it may not be easy, there is a way out of your circumstances because deep down, you know what to do, even when you don't want to do it. So I am going to leave this one actually out on my computer desk so that I can focus on that because I think that that's a really great card. So as we go in today's episode, just keep remembering that you have the answer inside of you already. And if you don't have the answer inside of you, spirit will give you the answer, but you have to act on what that answer is. Spirit isn't going to just fix everything because you ask them to. And it's just like, if you say prayers or if you say affirmations or whatever you do to connect to the higher source, if you don't take the next step to physically do what needs to be done, you're going to be in the exact same position as when you started. So we'll just leave it at that. So let's get started talking about boundaries. In her book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, licensed therapist Nedra Glover Tawwab writes, the root of self-care is setting boundaries. It is saying no to something in order to say yes to your own emotional, physical, and mental well-being. The root. Boundaries are the root. If we do not have boundaries, we are never, ever going to feel like we're getting where we need to get because we're spreading ourselves too thin. Trust me, as a mom of five, when at one point in my life, I had 2 kids in high school, 1 kid in middle school, 1 kid in elementary school, and 1 kid in nursery school. All of them in different directions. The 2 that were in high school both played all the sports. The one in middle school played all the sports also. And we lived in a small town, so we usually had to travel at least an hour in a direction for sports events. And I was always spreading myself too thin, always. And I look back on those times and how stressed out I was and how poor I was at managing my stress. And I'm really glad that I've grown into a different person because it was hard. It was really hard always saying yes to everything and never putting my needs first. Setting boundaries can be a form of self care that helps you prioritize your needs and well being. They can help you feel more in control of your life, can improve your relationships, improve mental health, and build self esteem. So, how do boundaries help with self care? Boundaries help with stress reduction. They can help you manage stress and prevent burnout. They improve relationships. Boundaries can help you create healthier relationships by establishing respect, trust, and open communication. Boundaries help with self awareness. Boundaries can help you understand your values, limits, and triggers. And I will say that when I had my little break, self awareness was something I was really focusing on because when you get so wrapped up in everything that's going on in your life, you sometimes forget what you really are about deep inside. And when you take a step away from the normal everyday hustle and bustle, you can, you know, remember, oh, yeah, it's really important to me to paint every week. It's really important to me to journal every day. Whatever it is that you value but you're not doing for yourself, self awareness will help you find that. It is also great for self love because boundaries can help you feel better about yourself and boost your self respect. Saying no is hard, and we're going to get into that deeper in just a little bit. But when you say no and you mean it, you can have more self confidence and self respect because you're like, no, I can't commit to that because ABCD, whatever. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, wow, that felt good. It felt good to say no to something. So don't be afraid to say no. And like I said, we're going to get into that a little bit in just a minute. Um, Boundaries are great for energy management because they can help you manage your energy levels so you can give more to others. You cannot pour from an empty cup, as the old saying goes. So if you need to take a break to fill your cup, fill your freaking cup. Seriously, fill your cup. A lot of people think self care is bubble bath, is a spa trip, is a vacation. And self care is so much more than that. And as the quote said, it is self care. The root of self care is setting boundaries. Because if you cannot set a boundary, you are never going to feel like you are being yourself, that you're being authentic to who you are. You're always going to feel like you're bowing down to somebody else because you're doing something for someone else that that time could have been used for you to do something for yourself. How do you set boundaries? First of all, practice saying no. You can set boundaries by saying no to things that do not serve you. And it's just that simple. If it is an activity or, a responsibility that doesn't serve you in your higher good, then say no. You also, to set boundaries, need to define your needs. Consider what you need to feel secure and healthy and when you need it. Just like when I raised the flag, I surrendered and I defined the needs that I needed. I need time away from my family. I need time away from everything. I need to check out. And I defined what I needed. I expressed it in a way that was non threatening. And even though it was not received very well, I think the next time that I say, hold up, I need a freaking break, it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings or worry anyone because I think there was a lot of worry behind it. But we're also going to talk more in a little bit about how someone else reacts to your boundaries is not your freaking problem. So remember that. When you set boundaries, do them to protect yourself. Boundaries can help protect yourself from toxic, harmful people, from toxic and harmful situations, and from toxic and harmful behaviors. Period. You need to protect yourself from those things. And in order to do that, you're going to have to set boundaries. Maintaining healthy boundaries, but when we do that, we're able to say no to things that we don't want to do. And we're able to set limits on how much of we give of ourselves to other people. We're also able to ask for what we need. I need a day off. I need to go get my nails done and talk to the nail tech and then go get a cup of coffee and sit in my car and suck it down before I go to the thrift store and I rummage through people's used crap for an hour by myself. Sometimes I just need to go to the grocery store by myself and shop without anyone asking me, can we get this? Can we get this? Can we get this? Speak of what you need. Speak it out. Also, when we start setting our own boundaries, we're able to respect the boundaries of others and not take it so personally when someone tells us no. So, the more that you learn to say no, the more that you're going to be able to hear no also. And having healthy boundaries is essential for self care. If you are not saying no to things, you are not taking care of yourself, period. You're not. Boundaries make sure that you're only engaging in situations, commitments, or relationships that serve you well. If someone is toxic and you don't want to be around them, don't. Just don't. It can be your family, it could be a friend, it could be an acquaintance, it could be a coworker. If they are toxic and disruptive in your life, then just pass. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be mean. You can just, not ignore them. That's not what I'm trying to say, but you can choose not to engage in whatever behavior it is about them that drives you insane. It could be gossiping. It could be, whatever. Some people are braggarts and all they do is talk about, oh, I did this and oh, I did this. And every story that you tell, they have to one up. You don't have to engage with those people. You can just choose not to. Um, Self care setting boundaries ensure that you prioritize your self care, helping you make space for activities and rest that nurture your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. So when you set a boundary, you are setting yourself up for success instead of failure. So, how do we know if we need some boundaries? How do you know that you have poor boundaries? These are some of the warning signs that you should look for in different areas of your life to determine if maybe you need to set another boundary there. First one, you can't say no. And as a result, you end up overcommitting to things that you don't have time or desire to do. One of the activities that I like to do is volunteer at my kids' school. I love volunteering at their school. But because I volunteer at their school, they know, oh, wait, Jamie will do it. Let's ask her. And I have had to be like, no, I'm not going to work that basketball game because it is on a Wednesday night. And by the time it would be over, it would be past my kid's bedtime. And it's just a hard pass. No, thank you. I will not help, with the concession stand at the basketball game. Now, do you need help all week at the book fair? Absolutely. I'm your girl. I will come during school hours and I will work the book fair. I will go and get classes. I will bring them down. I will explain how it works. No problem whatsoever. But it took me learning how to set boundaries in other areas of my life to be able to say it no in that specific setting because I do want to help in any way I can in my kids' school, but I can't be the only one that's helping. And I'm not. We have lots of parents that help and volunteer and want to be involved. But when you become a reliable volunteer, they rely on you more. And sometimes you just have to have a hard no and say, no, thank you. I cannot do that. Let me know the next thing that you need someone for. Another warning sign is that you feel burnt out, often due to overcommitting to things that are not beneficial to you. Work. So easy to overcommit at work. Yeah, I'll help you with that project. Yeah, I'll take that on. Yes, I'll do that. Work is probably one of the biggest places that we do need to set boundaries. For me, the evening is my time with my family. I am not going to return an email. I am not going to answer a work call. It is not work hours. This is my time with my family. And I think that people having cell phones has made everyone think that everyone should be available for them 24 hours a day. And I absolutely do not believe in that. When I get home in the afternoon, I may be on my phone for a little bit, but by the time it's time for dinner or to start making dinner, I go and I plug my phone in just like I was going to bed. And the reasons I do this are twofold. One, if my phone is away from me, I have absolutely no desire to scroll on anything, on Facebook, on TikTok, on whatever. If it is away from me, I'm not going to be on there scrolling, and I'm going to be able to be present and available for my family, which is what I want to be. Like I am an okayest mom, but I want to be a good okayest mom. I want to be a present okayest mom. The things we may do may not be the most wonderful things, but I want to be there 100% for my family. And so when I go put that phone away, I am going to be able to devote my time to them. The second fold is so people are not bothering me. If my phone is already plugged in the evening and somebody texts me, a friend, a family member, a colleague, whatever, I'm not going to respond to that. Now, if it's important, I usually check it before I go to bed. I don't always. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really good at putting my phone away and ignoring it. And I take great pride in that because it's taking a lot of work to get to that point. So I will not respond to texts. And I know people think, oh, it's 6 o'clock. She definitely has her phone. No, at 6 o'clock, I am already in the middle of making dinner, if not already feeding my family, and my phone has already been plugged in for an hour. So the best time to get a hold of me is going to be in the middle of the day. That is when you know, I'm plugged in, I'm turned on, I'm ready. Another reason that I like to plug my phone in is because we all should not be on our phones or on any kind of screen, blue light device for at least an hour before we go to sleep. And I'm going to tell you right now that when I started plugging my phone in instead of the kids going to bed and hopping on social media and scrolling for hours of stupid shit that is just rotting my brain. I I I don't do it anymore, and I sleep so much better. I used to have to sedate myself to sleep, literally. That was years ago, but that is exactly what I used to have to do. And now I can get a good 7.5, even sometimes 8 hours of sleep without medication, without any supplements, herbs, otherwise. And to me, I'm very proud of that. It took me a long time to get to where I can naturally sleep and feel rested in the morning. So if you feel like that's something that would benefit you in a boundary, set that boundary, put that phone up. All right. The third warning sign that you may have poor boundaries is that you are constantly taking care of others, even to your own detriment. This is along the same lines as being the mom friend, but that it takes it a step further as to you either fail to think about or intentionally ignore your own needs. Are you the person that everyone comes to with their bullshit? Sometimes you have to put up a wall that's like, no bullshit in here. Thank you, but no thank you. And make sure that your friendships are reciprocating. It is fine to be the person that someone vents to, but you have to have someone that you vent to also. There has to be a reciprocation. And when you're the one that's constantly taking care of everyone else and not taking care of yourself, you need to put a freaking boundary there. Um, Another sign is that you feel like you can't say what you need or want. People pleasers. This response often comes hand in hand with the fear of being a burden. You're afraid to speak what you need because you feel like it's going to inconvenience someone else. Well, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to inconvenience someone else sometimes. Sometimes that's what you have to do to take care of yourself. But if you feel that you cannot say what you want and need, it may be because you actually need a boundary, not because you don't know what you want or need. Although sometimes you don't know what you want or need because you've been conditioned to only worry about what everybody else wants and needs. So you have to learn to do it for yourself, not just for other people. Another sign is that you're a pushover and tend to let others walk all over you. If you tolerate behavior that is blatantly disrespectful of you, you need a boundary. And like this could be your marriage, this can be an adult child, this could be a coworker. If someone just expects you to go along with what they want to be done, then it you may need a boundary there. Don't be a pushover and don't let other people disrespect you. It's not cool. If you struggle to have your own opinions or identity and often feel the need to follow someone else, such as a parent or a spouse, instead of developing on your own, that is a place where you need a boundary. That is a sign because when you become used to compromising your core values and beliefs, you lose these core parts of your identity and begin following others to find them. So know that you have a right to have your own opinion. You have a right to have your own choices. You have a right to be your own self. And you don't have to depend on someone else to tell you what you want to eat for dinner. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, the struggle of dinner is real. It is one of the things I hate most about adulting is figuring out what the heck we're going to eat for dinner every single night. And usually it's kind of like a democracy or what I'll do, especially when all five kids were at home. We had a family of seven. Each person picked one night. We made what they wanted. But some nights I just make what I want because I don't care what they want. I want what I want. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to say, I don't care if y'all like this. This is what we're having for dinner. If you don't want it, make a peanut butter sandwich. Took me a decade to figure that out. So hopefully you feel confident in making your own decisions and having your own opinions because that is such a big part of self-care is having your own autonomy. Another sign is that you give away your time and valuable skills for free. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not always bad to give away your skills. Like I mentioned, I volunteer a lot and, I do it for free. That is what I do. But if you're constantly giving away maybe even services, like for example, I used to do hair. The people that I still do hair on are my children, my husband, and my sister. That's it. But it used to be every single flipping person that I knew that wanted a haircut or a color or a style or whatever, I would do it for free because that's what they expected of me. So if you find yourself giving away what is valuable about you for free, then you need a boundary for sure. That's definitely a sign that you're lacking boundaries in that area. Another one is that you find relationships draining because they often involve people dumping their problems on you, leading to a give take imbalance, which you give constantly and the other person takes. We touched on that lightly just a minute ago, but try to nurture those friendships that are reciprocated, that you're not the only one giving all the time because you're going to feel a lot more fulfilled and you're going to be a lot less stressed and you're going to have a lot more self-esteem when you have a friend circle that is there for you to support you, just like you're there to support them. Another sign is that you're highly sensitive to the opinions of others, especially criticism or disapproval. You place your worth in the opinions of others rather than defining your own value, and you are constantly seeking approval to reinforce your worth. Think about that one. Let that one sit a second. Do you find yourself like at work? You can't take constructive criticism from your boss or your coworkers because when they criticize you, you automatically feel like you failed. you didn't live up to the expectation because they had some, some feedback. And that is a huge sign that you need some boundaries with yourself, honestly, because you need to look inside yourself and find validation within, not be constantly seeking validation from other people, because other people are going to let you down when they're the ones that are validating. And you give away your power when you are constantly looking for validation from other people. Another one is that you struggle to make decisions as you are often used to just going along with whatever people want. So, like we said, if you have the right to make your own choices, and if you have a hard time doing that, you need to practice that. You need to practice speaking up and saying, "No, I really don't want to go get coffee. I would much rather go bowling," or whatever it is. I mean, fill in the blank. But just know that if you are struggling to make decisions, it may be because you need a boundary there. Another one is that you feel responsible for other people's feelings and will blame yourself even when it makes no sense at all. And I'm not talking about being an empath. I'm talking about like a next level, not that you feel what someone else is feeling, you feel like it's your fault that they're feeling that. For example, your friend had a bad day. You may have had nothing to do with them having a bad day, but you feel like it's all your fault. It's my fault they had a bad day because I should have been there for them, or I should have been able to fix this, or I should. No, it's not your responsibility to make everyone have a good day. You cannot feel responsible for other people's feelings. You can only own your own. And if you're owning other people's, I can guarantee you, you're not owning your own feelings. So if you do that, you definitely need a boundary. And the last one that I have is that you resent those who ask things of you and those who have the boundaries to say no. Even though you agree to do certain things, you are still incredibly frustrated by and resentful about them. This resentment may materialize as general irritability, emotional outbursts over small things, or freaking out over something that's completely unrelated. If you don't set boundaries and you come across someone that does, part of you is going to be like, man, how selfish of them. Or you might think, man, I wish I could say no to that. I'm stuck here at the concession stand at the basketball game because I couldn't freaking say no. They needed someone. You can't do things that you resent because you're not going to do them with your full heart. You're not going to do them with your full spirit. You're going to half-ass things and you're not going to enjoy it. And that's not giving your best. It's not giving your best to yourself. It's not giving your best to other people. It's not giving your best to the world. So really focus on not agreeing to do things that you know that you're going to resent later. Just say no. All right, so now that we have identified a bunch of different ways that we know that we have core boundaries. Oh, this is Rocky. I don't know if you can see his snout. He's my Great Dane, and he decided that he needed to be on camera today. So he's right here. He's actually telling me that he wants to go outside with baby because he is outside playing by himself, and it concerns the dog. But it is, I think the last time I checked, 11 degrees outside. And I'm not putting him out there because he's gonna just bark at me to come in 5 minutes. So back up, boy. So back to boundaries. Now that we've established different ways to know that we need boundaries, how do we make boundaries? How do we do this? How do we build healthy boundaries? So boundary setting is going to look different depending on the situation, the individual, but these following 4 steps provide a really good outline for what healthy boundary setting and follow through can look like. Number 1, set clear boundaries. What exactly are you okay with in terms of general behaviors, friendships, family relationships, ways you're being treated, etc.? It is normal for these boundaries to differ between people in your life. For example, you will most likely have more strict boundaries with your boss than you will with your family and close friends. But it also varies between settings because you're going to have a different boundary with your best friend if you're in a business meeting together or if you are, out to the movies. Situations change, people are different. It's going to look different in different situations, but what's most important is setting it to be clear. Clear with yourself, clear with who it is involved with. So, step one is set clear boundaries. Step two is set clear consequences. What will happen if someone oversteps these boundaries? Again, these will fluctuate with your boundaries, with the people, with the situation, but it's essential to set these before needing them so you know how to respond when someone crosses the boundary. And that's hard. It's hard to say. If you come in here and bother me while I'm doing this, I am not going to go to the movies with you or whatever. You have to set your consequence before it's ever needed. So that way, when it comes up, you can, bam, this is what's going to happen. If A happens, then B is going to happen. And that I told you that, and now that's what's happening. Set clear consequences. Second. Third, communicate. Communicating your boundaries and consequences if these boundaries are overstepped is key to carry out healthy boundaries. This does not have to come across as harsh, but it is very important to be assertive. Be clear, communicate exactly what your boundary is and what your consequence is. Because if you don't communicate it, then are you even really setting a boundary? If it's just in your head, then it really isn't a boundary. The fourth one is follow through. Easily the hardest part can be to follow through on both boundaries and consequences. It can be uncomfortable, especially if setting healthy boundaries is new to you in your relationships, but it is always worthwhile. Once you set a boundary and a consequence and you communicated it clearly, you have to follow through. Now, one of the boundaries that I had with my kids when they were much smaller, because we don't get many temper tantrums now. Every once in a while we do, but not very often. If my kids threw a fit for something, I didn't care what it was. They could be throwing a fit for a cup of juice, or they could be throwing a fit because they don't want to put their shoes on, whatever it is. If they throw a fit, they don't get what they want, period. I can want to give it to them. I could want to give them whatever it is that they're throwing a fit about. But if they throw a fit for it, nope, not going to happen. That's my boundary. That's the consequence. It's been clearly communicated to you. And so the fact that you were throwing a fit over wanting that toy means we are absolutely not buying it. Period. That's how it works. So think about the ways that you can set those into motion in your life and help establish and build healthy boundaries for you and for your family and for your, everything, for your work life. So set clear boundaries, set clear consequences, communicate, and follow through are the 4 steps that you need to follow to set some healthy boundaries. Now that we've established that we need boundaries and how to set them, what's going to happen next? Well, a lot of times, especially when we haven't had boundaries set prior, we're going to feel guilty. We're going to feel guilty for saying no. We're going to feel guilty for not committing to everything. We're going to feel guilty for not always being there all the time, 24/7 for everyone that we know. And that is natural. It is natural to feel guilt. You may feel guilt because boundaries are a new concept to you and to the people around you. If the people around you are not used to you saying no, when you say no, that shit is going to hit the fan. That is just what happens, period. You also may feel guilt because you grew up or live in an environment where boundaries are not used or were not respected. If you did not grow up or you do not maintain boundaries in your family unit currently, you're going to feel guilty about setting. You may also feel guilty because someone has a negative reaction to your boundary, or you think that they might have a negative reaction to your boundary. That also causes guilt. And guilt can also pop up when you're not used to putting yourself and your needs first. So know that feeling guilty about setting boundaries is very natural response, especially in the beginning. So, how do we deal with this guilt that we're feeling because we're setting new boundaries? First and foremost, you're going to have to sit with it. Guilt is one of those uncomfortable, difficult feelings that we do not want to feel, but it is not bad to feel it. And it definitely doesn't mean that the boundary you're setting is wrong. Sitting with guilt or any other difficult emotion means you're allowing yourself to acknowledge it and feel it. So, what are different ways that we can sit with it? We can journal, we can meditate, and I highly suggest finding somewhere where you feel safe, comfortable, and relaxed. Because if you're going to be sitting with some feelings that are hard, you want to be in an environment that you feel comfortable in. So, for me, I've mentioned before, there's a creek near our house that I like to go to spend time at. That's one of my favorite places to sit with any feeling. It doesn't matter to me what's going on. So, sit with your guilt. Next, sit with it with self-compassion. I just realized I took my glasses off and I can't see. There they are. Take it a step further and add some self-compassion and truly acknowledge the guilt you're feeling without judging yourself. Acknowledging your guilt without judgment can look like, I'm feeling guilty because I told my mom I couldn't help her rearrange her furniture. It makes sense that I feel this way because I care about my mom and I care about my relationship with my mom and I want to help my mom. But I know I made the best decision for myself and for our relationship. So whenever you make that hard decision, that hard stop, remind yourself that there's a reason why you did it, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to be able to say no. Another thing that we have to do when we're dealing with guilt is remind ourselves you are not responsible for other people's reactions. Negative reactions may include dismissing, invalidating, gaslighting, silent treatment, whatever it is, that is not your problem. The way that someone reacts to your boundary is their problem. So when you're feeling guilty, remember that their feelings are not the ones that you need to be focused on. Your own feelings, your own mental wellness, your own health and, stability is why that boundary's there. And if it hurts them in some way, then that's on them. And that's hard, but it's true. An example of an emotional boundary is to not take responsibility for others' emotions. It can be incredibly helpful to remember that you are not responsible for any reaction someone else has. It is, of course, important to still be mindful of how you're delivering your boundary. Remember to be assertive, not aggressive. But also remember that it is not selfish. Putting yourself first is one of the most important things you can do. You may have developed a belief that putting yourself first is selfish or disrespectful to others, but it is not true. It's quite the opposite, actually. Setting boundaries is a way of taking care of yourself, but it also helps improve your relationships with others, which is neither selfish nor disrespectful. So don't let setting a boundary make you feel like you're selfish, because that is not true. You would not be setting a boundary if it wasn't needed. Another way to deal with the guilt is to set more boundaries. Practice makes progress. The more you set boundaries, the less likely you will feel guilty about setting them. Much of our guilt stems from the other person's response, the anticipation of the other person's response. Before we've even set the boundary, and feeling uncomfortable with putting our own needs first. As we continue practicing and setting boundaries, there's a good chance that we will have more positive experiences that will teach us that it is 100% okay and necessary to set firm boundaries. I'm proud of y'all if you've made it this far because I think we all need a little bit of a reminder about this. And I hope that I have covered it in a way that makes you feel confident that you can move forward and have healthy boundaries, period. That's what I want everyone here to be able to do. It is just like we said at the very beginning, it is the root of self-care, setting boundaries. So practice setting boundaries this week. Practice not feeling guilty for setting your boundaries. Practice loving yourself because that boundary really is self love. At its core, that is what it is. So, if you journal, you might want to pause right now, go grab your journal, or you might want to put a little bookmark at this time to remind yourself that there is some good journaling and reflection questions to go over at this point in the episode. So, some reflection questions for you to think about whenever you are setting boundaries are: how do you feel about boundaries? Were they a part of your life growing up with your family or your origin? Are they practiced now within your close family and friend groups? Where do you need boundaries in your life? How do you know that you need these boundaries? Example, that you feel resentful towards someone or you have difficulty saying no. And how will you communicate these boundaries? Try writing down the boundaries that you want to set, and you can even practice saying them out loud. You can make affirmations about how you're going to communicate what it is that your boundary is. So, like we said before, we often think that self care means expensive spa treatments, destination retreats, or vacations, but it starts right here with ourselves. When we're energetically drained, the problem is often poor boundaries, not the need for expensive splurges. You don't need to go on a big shopping trip. You need to say no to that thing that is making you feel so stressed out that impulsively buying things is the only thing that's going to make you feel better. And remember that setting and holding boundaries is the best way to create a life that we don't need to escape from. I can tell you at this point in my life, I am happier on a daily basis than I have ever been in my life. I am 46 years old and I am happier now than any other time in my life because I do put myself first sometimes. I do recognize what I need. I do set boundaries. I am creating a life that I like every single day. There is not a day that I wake up and I'm like, oh, shit, I don't want to do this. I don't. Now, I wake up and there are days like, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go out in the cold. I'm not saying that I wake up every day. This is the best day of my life and let's do this. I should, but I don't. Let's be real. I'm okay. It's just not every day. It's not how it works. But I am building a life that I don't feel like I need a vacation from. My husband and I joke pretty often about this, but it's really the truth of our life is that the first time we came to Colorado, we came and got married. We had never been here before. I literally Googled cool places in Colorado to get married. We came up here, we had a vacation, we got married, and then we continued to come back to Colorado. It was our special vacation place. And then we moved here. We literally moved to our vacation. I no longer live somewhere that I feel like I need to get away from. I've lived somewhere that I feel like I'm already on vacation. And yes, I still have the daily, what the hell are we going to eat? And do the kids have clean socks for school? I mean, life is still lifing. But every day I can look out my window and see the mountains and be like, oh yeah, I fucking live here. And that is awesome. I want everyone to create that. Create a life that you're not trying to escape from. Create the life that you want, because that is the only way you're going to get what you want. Is you have to manifest it. You have to work for it. You have to put the steps in and the work in to make it your own. And I promise you, if I can move to my vacation, anyone can. But as we stated when we moved here, we can be poor in Texas or we can be poor in Colorado. At least we'll be happy. So I love it here. Don't regret moving here a day in my life. And I wish that type of happiness and peace on everyone. I want everyone to live somewhere that they feel like they're already on a vacation. I know that in 45 minutes, I can be in the woods, in the mountains, and that to me is priceless. It's absolutely priceless that I know that in less than an hour, especially in the summer, it is 106 in Pueblo in the summer. But I can go up in the mountains and you know what it is? 86. And the humidity is next to nothing. It is my vacation. It is what I want to get away from the world, is what I live every day. And that is freaking cool. It really is. I'm proud of that. And I have to say that there are a lot of things that led us to be able to do that. If my parents were still alive, I could guarantee you we would still be in Texas. We would still be vacationing here. We would still be talking about how we want to live here, but we would not have made the jump to move and come here. Also, the pandemic. We moved straight smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. We moved in June of 2020 up here. And I think that that strange instability, yet like we were all very close because we were in close quarters. We were all together all the time. And like we had that security of our family unit. So because we were all on lockdown and stuck in the same place, it didn't matter if we were stuck in a house in Texas or we were stuck in a house in Colorado. It did not matter. We still had that strong familial bond that helped keep us together. So I'm going to pause here really quick and have a short message from one of our partners, and then I will be right back. So y'all enjoy. All right, let's get back to boundaries. So I think that we have covered the mental wellness and self-care side very, very well. Now let's make some magic, moms. How can we use magic to help reinforce our boundaries? To reinforce boundaries using magical practices, you can utilize visualization techniques, protective spells, grounding rituals, and symbolic objects to create an energetic barrier around yourself, effectively defining your personal space and limiting unwanted energy. First one, visualization. You can visualize a protective bubble. Imagine yourself enveloped in a radiant, impenetrable sphere of light, color, or a protective substance like a crystal shield. Literally, close your eyes and visualize that you have a sphere around you that you are not going to let the bullshit in. This is your safe space. Everything else can stay out. Another one you can do is visualize boundary lines. Visualize clear lines around your physical space, marking where your personal space ends and another begins. This is handy, especially in workspaces, because a lot of times we have to share workspaces with other people, but we often have a space that is our own. Now, one of the jobs that I had, the space that was my own was a cart that I rolled to different parts of the school, but that cart was mine, and everyone knew that whatever was on my cart, they were welcome to use, but not to touch my cart. If you need something off of it, hey, can I borrow this? Hey, can I borrow this? Whatever. I will give you whatever I have, but don't touch my shit. That was my energetic boundary line. My clear line at work was around that cart. Leave it alone. Another one when you're visualizing is visualize an actual root system. Imagine roots growing from your feet, anchoring you to the ground and providing stability. It is hard to hold a boundary if you do not feel grounded. So when you feel more grounded, you are going to feel stronger in the conviction of your own boundary. So visualizing roots growing into the ground and holding you firm can help tremendously. Protective spells. First one, casting a circle. Create a circle around yourself with physical objects like stones or by visualizing a circular boundary. Recite a protective chant or affirmation while doing so. A lot of people cast circles before they do any sort of magical work. Some people don't, some people do. Not judging if you do, not judging if you don't. Doesn't matter to me. But when you are doing a spell to help reinforce a boundary, casting a circle is a really good idea. You are making an energetic barrier to help protect you and your energy. Another thing you can do with protective spells is wearing personal protective charms. Wear or carry a talisman or amulet associated with protection, like a crystal or a protective symbol or some sort of personalized charm. You can put a sigil on something. I wear the same jewelry every day. This ring right here, I got it in the market, this market square in Santa Fe, New Mexico, from an indigenous woman that made it. She hammered it out silver, and she blessed it before I purchased it, and it represents the past, present, and future. This is a ring that I wear every single day, and it is a talisman to remind me to be centered, to be myself, to stand my ground, to honor my past and, protect my future. So it can be a ring, it could be a necklace. I also wear this necklace every day. This necklace represents all of the major world religions and how I believe that everybody got it right. I know that may be hard to swallow, but I think Christianity's right. I think Judaism's right. I think Hinduism is right. I think Buddhism is right. I think everyone has it right because at the core of all of the major religions is love, and that's what is right. We need to recognize that love is the answer. So that's why I wrote that. It can be anything. You can also have an elemental protection. Evoke the elements, earth, air, fire, water, to create a protective barrier around you. Call upon their power to ward off negativity. So based on what you're trying to ward off, you may want to use, call in air to give you the thoughts that you need, or to call in water to help you manage the emotions around setting the boundary. Call in earth to help you get that grounded feeling, and call in fire to give you this inspiration and the spark to stand your ground. Call the elements. They're here for you. We're made up of all the elements. Everything is elements. Use it to your advantage. Another one that I love to do is making salt lines or salt spray. Salt is a great energetic barrier, but it also can serve as a visual barrier to remind you what your boundaries are. Every season, I relay salt lines on, and we have a front gate, like we have stairs that come up to our front porch, and we have a wrought iron gate and fence. And I will take rock salt, like the kind of salt that you use for making ice cream, a real chunky, it's not just going to blow away kind of salt. It's very hardy salt. And I will either mix herbs with it or ashes with it, just depending on what season it is and what I'm trying, to lay the boundary line about. And I will lay it straight across that threshold of the gate so that every time I walk past it, it reminds me, I'm in my safe place now. I'm home. Or when I'm leaving, I'm leaving and I take this protection with me as I leave my space because, I know that I'm, not going to let other energies interfere with mine. And you can use black salt. That's mixing ash with the salt. Some people do not like using salt because they don't think that it is good to put on the earth. And I agree that you shouldn't go salting everything. That That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a minimal amount of salt in a place that gives you a maximum visualization of the actual physical scene of it. But if you don't want to work with salt, that's okay too. You could use eggshells. You can use ashes by themselves. It does not have to be salt. You can also make a salt spray. Take a spray bottle, dissolve some salt in it, put some essential oils or put some herbs or flowers in it, depending on what your intentions are. Set your intentions and spray that line down. I just like having the physical, actual rock salt there to see. One, because it reminds me, but two, you'd be surprised how many people are like, hey, why is there salt across your gate? Like it makes them uneasy because it's doing its job. It's keeping bad mojo out of my personal sacred space, which is my home. So I love using salt lines. That's definitely something to think about as far as reinforcing boundaries in a magical way. You can also do grounding rituals. When you meditate with grounding visualization, focus on connecting with the earth. Like we talked about earlier, imagine roots extending from your body into the ground, drawing stability and energy from the planet. What do roots do? They pull in the nourishment for the plant, pull in the nourishment. So when you visualize that you have these deep roots that are bringing you what you need, it's going to reinforce that boundary because you're feeling the support of the earth behind you. Another grounding ritual, which I do on the regular, I even do it in the snow, which is sounds ridiculous. And as a Texan, I never in a million years thought that I would do this in the snow, but walk barefoot on the earth. Spend time outside in direct contact with the ground to physically connect to the ground's energy. One of the first things I do when we go camping is I ditch my shoes. And where we camp, there's a lot of pine trees. So pine needles are not always the nicest on the feet, and pine sap is even grosser. But by the end of the weekend of camping, my feet are so sappy and full of pine needles that I probably look like a mama bear. But I love being barefoot. I do not like wearing shoes. I tell people if I have shoes and socks on, my feet can't breathe. And that may not make sense to people because feet don't breathe, but my feet need to breathe. And I think that grounding with bare feet is so therapeutic. So if you don't walk around barefoot on the earth, try it. Try it in different things, like try it in grass, try it in dirt, try it in snow, try it on rocks. Put your feet on different types of earth and really sit with it and see how that makes you feel. I love putting my feet in the river. Our river is the Arkansas River because it starts here in Colorado and it goes all the way to Arkansas. So I guess because Arkansas was settled first, it became the Arkansas River before it became the Colorado. The Colorado River goes the other direction. But it is snowmelt. That's period. It is snowmelt. And we live within, I would say 40, 50 miles of the headwaters of the Arkansas. So we are the first, like our reservoir is the first body of water that is made up of this snowmelt. So it doesn't get much cleaner and purer than that. And because it is snowmelt, it can still be July and the water is freezing cold. This last summer, I ended up buying our 7-year-old a wetsuit because he is probably got 1% body fat, if even that. And he would like get hypothermic when we went swimming in the river. And getting a wetsuit was a deal breaker. He does not freeze to death anymore. But I love that freezing cold. And I have a congenital foot defect. So my feet are kind of weird and I've had surgeries and they've broken bones and I have titanium rods and all kinds of crap. But I love putting my feet in that cold water and feeling that water just rush over them. And it almost feels like it's just sucking anything out of me that bothers me out through my feet and washing it to Arkansas. So experiment with different ways of grounding with bare feet. You might be surprised of finding ones that you're like, hey, wait, this really, really resonates with me. Like the river for me. That's my favorite. If I can have my feet off in the river, I will do it. And I have done it with ice on the edge of the river. I have still done it. So go forth and find where you like to ground. While you're doing that, bum, 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 have connection with nature. Spend time in nature. Surround yourself with plants and trees. Feel a sense of belonging and connection to the larger ecosystem. As I stated earlier, we are all made of elements. We are. We're all made of the same elements: trees, rocks, chipmunks, us, all made up of the same stuff. So go somewhere where you can feel more connected to that. Me, it's the mountains. I love the mountains. Other people, it's the beach. I know people that would love every day to go bury their feet in the sand because that is what rejuvenates them. So find what it is in nature that calls you and grounds you, because that's what's most important is you, what works for you. You can also use symbolic objects such as boundary stones. Place visible stones or crystals around your space to mark the limits of your personal space. So, one of our favorite camping spots here in Colorado, we call Quartz Mountain, and that is because it's literally like quartz exploded all over the mountain. You can pick up quartz everywhere. So, I have so much quartz that I currently have a piece of quartz, not just in the four corners of my house, in every corner that my house makes. So, like, you know, the front porch, the bathroom, everywhere it jogs from like a normal square, I put another piece of quartz and I regularly cleanse them. I regularly put intentions in them and bless them and thank the Lord for them for providing these quartz for me. But I have a physical boundary stone that I have to protect my home. And you can do that at home, you can do that at work, you can do that in your car, wherever you feel like you need a physical reminder of your boundary. Put a stone there. Stones are here for us. They love us. We got to love them back. You can also have protected plants. Keep plants associated with protection, like basil, rosemary, or sage near your home or workspace. You can grow them. I grow basil, rosemary, and sage every single season that's a growing season. I currently have them hanging, drying in my kitchen. I bundle them up with hemp rope and I nail them to the ceiling. And when I need some basil, I grab some down and I use it. So not only did I grow it, but I also harvested it and dried it and I utilize it in our life. And to me, that's very fulfilling because I know the energy and love that went into it. It's like it boosts its protective energies and properties for my family. Mirrors are another thing that you can use. Strategically placed mirrors can reflect unwanted energy back to its source. So I'm not going to do much more about mirrors. If you want to Google magical uses of mirrors, there's a whole podcast episode just on mirrors. But know that you can use mirrors to energetically protect your areas. So while you're working with magic and using magic to reinforce your boundaries, remember, as we always say, intention is key. Whatever your intention is that you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So you need to clearly define your boundaries and intentions when practicing magical boundary reinforcement. Also, keep in consideration personalization. Choose practices that resonate with your personal beliefs and your magical feelings. If you don't resonate with basil, don't buy basil. If dill resonates with you, buy dill. Same with crystals. We already discussed in the color episode, I don't care if it's man-made or if it's natural or if it's even really a freaking crystal. It does not matter to me. If it calls me, I am going to follow. I am going to bring it home with me. In fact, I got 2 new rocks this week. See if I can reach them. Actually, I actually got 3 new rocks. But when I go to my favorite metaphysical witchy shop, I just like, what am I here for? Tell me what I'm here for. So I got this one, which I don't even remember what it's called. I have it on my phone. I'll have to look it up. I got this one. This is a lithium quartz. It's a good protection one. And this is honey calcite. I didn't have a honey calcite. Now I do. So whatever calls you, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be a round polished stone. This is a piece of rose quartz I picked up off the ground. And I love it. I use it in rituals. And you can't tell that well right now, but it really does have a nice pink to it. So whatever resonates with you, use it. Another thing to consider is consistency. Consistency is vital. Excuse that alarm. I was to go pick my kids up from school, but we already discussed that it's a snow day and they're not even at school. So, consistency. Regularly practice these rituals to maintain strong energetic boundaries. Like I said, I refresh the courts that are around my house on a regular basis. Keep putting that intention into what you're doing. If it's a salt line, if it's a rock, if it's a plant, whatever it is, be consistent with, refreshing your intention. And your intention can change or it can be the same. It doesn't matter. Just be consistent with coming back to it and recognizing it and being grateful for it and just really appreciating what it is that you're using that for. And lastly, respect other people's boundaries. Be mindful of not imposing your energetic boundaries on other people also. They have boundaries, you have boundaries. Respect that. And the more that you respect that, the better off everyone is going to be. So we have covered warning signs for needing boundaries, how to set boundaries, how to deal with guilt from setting boundaries, how to use magic to reinforce our boundaries. I think everyone should feel a little more confident about themselves and their boundary setting ability. I hope that that is something that you take away from this. Now, right before we close, I am going to go through some journaling exercises, and there will be a link in the show notes for like just a printout. It'll be like a PDF of what this is so that you can do it on your own time. You don't have to sit here. I mean, you can sit here and do it while I'm talking, and you can pause it and do your thing. But don't feel like you have to do it right this second. A lot of people listen while they're driving or while they're cleaning or whatever. There will be a link to the PDF that has these same prompts and these same questions. So here are 3 tips for exploring our boundaries in the service of providing ourselves with loving, consistent, and mature self-care. Grab a journal and write down any ideas, themes, or lessons that come to mind with the following prompts. 1, look to the past. What experiences do I recall that were draining, difficult, or negative? Maybe these were explosive endings of relationships, awful work environments we tolerated too long, or periods in our lives that were especially heavy and challenging. Look back. Were there instances of boundary violations? Were there times I was overly accommodating to others at the expense of my own needs? What needs were highlighted through these experiences? What behaviors, such as assertive communication, listening to gut instinct, etc., could have improved those situations? What warning signs might be present that we failed to see the last time? So look backwards and really contemplate where you could have used boundaries, because that's going to help you when you move forward. So next is look at the present. At this moment in my life, how well am I caring for myself? Do I reserve enough energy to notice and attend to my own needs? Do I tend to wear myself out focusing on others? Do I make time for fun? Do I keep promises to myself? Do I find myself dreading events or people? Consider what situations and people cause a sense of dread or avoidance and explore how these situations may be pushing up against boundaries. For example, do these situations demand too much of my time? Do they force me to do things I don't feel comfortable doing, maybe such as public speaking? Do I struggle to be authentic in these circumstances? Are there people I dread because of imbalances in the relationship? Write down the situations that cause icky feelings. Look at the list. Consider which areas might be easiest to address. For example, asking a good friend to do more listening and less talking is likely to go better than asking your boss for less public speaking if that's one of your job duties. Pick the low hanging fruit and work towards making small, positive changes while considering what bigger changes are feasible down the road when approached with skill and planning. And third, be mindful. When we pay attention to our bodies let us know when something's wrong. It may be a fist clench, a stomach drop, or a racing heart. These are all signs that something is off. If we can stay present in our bodies, we can use these clues to help guide us to identify boundaries in need of shoring up. If tuning into your body feels unfamiliar, it may help to set reminders on a phone to check on body sensations at regular intervals during the day. We can also look back at our days and journal in the evenings about situations and the emotional and physical reactions they caused. Over time, patterns will appear and it will show you what you need to work on. So, I hope that you will journal on those. Like I said, in the show notes, there is a link for a PDF with those prompts. Go forth and care for yourself. Go forth and make boundaries that are healthy for you and your family. Go forth and create a life that you don't want to escape from because the power is yours. Until next week, keep making magic, mamas.